The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Marcus Aurelius. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Niccolo Machiavelli. You stand in a dimly lit corridor of history. On one side, the marble statue of a philosopher-emperor, eyes fixed upward, calm yet burdened. On the other, a shadowy figure with a sly smile, pen poised like a dagger, ready to carve the anatomy of power. Marcus Aurelius. Machiavelli. One whispers of virtue, the other of survival. Yet both are telling you a dangerous truth. If you are only gentle, the world will devour you. If you are only dangerous, you will devour yourself. Power is not a throne. It is a tightrope stretched over an abyss. One misstep, and the world calls you weak. Another misstep, and they call you cruel. You have felt it too, haven't you? That tension between wanting to be kind and knowing kindness alone can make you prey. That hunger to protect your integrity, yet feeling the sharp edge of a world that rewards cunning more than virtue. Marcus Aurelius sat on the imperial throne of Rome, yet wrote to himself as if he were a fragile soul standing at the edge of ruin. He spoke of temperance, justice, mercy, yet he commanded legions, crushed revolts, and signed death warrants. Niccolo Machiavelli, centuries later, wrote The Prince not for philosophers, but for survivors, men who understood that morality often bends when crowns are at stake. He argued that appearances of virtue matter more than virtue itself, that fear may hold a man's loyalty firmer than love. Two voices, two worlds. One question: which path do you walk when the cost of choosing wrong is everything? Carl Jung warns, the fool is not the one who thinks himself wise. The fool is the one who thinks the world will reward his innocence. History proves him right. Empires fall when rulers mistake mercy for strategy. Legacies rot when ambition devours conscience. Close your eyes. Picture yourself standing in the Forum of Rome. The crowd watches. You are the emperor. A man has betrayed your trust, endangered your people, stolen what cannot be returned. Do you extend your hand in mercy, as Marcus would? Or do you strike swiftly, sending a message? Fear is the price of betrayal, as Machiavelli counsels. One choice may make you beloved, for a time. The other may keep you alive, for longer. But here is the paradox. A mercy without teeth invites abuse. A fangs without virtue curdle your soul. Neither Marcus nor Machiavelli can guide you alone. You must hold both in your mind, like fire and water, without letting either consume you. And so, you stand between two shadows. One carved from marble, noble and stoic. One sketched in ink, cunning and sharp. Both whispering, to rule your world, to defend your values, to protect your life, you must be gentle. You must be dangerous. And you must know when to be which. This is where legend legacy steps in, not to hand you answers, but to leave you with questions burning in your chest. Can you navigate this razor's edge? Would Marcus Aurelius' gentleness save you, or undo you? Would Machiavelli's cunning protect you, or damn you? What do you believe? Which ideology whispers louder in your ear? Tell us in the comments. Let the debate sharpen like steel. But be warned. The next step takes us deeper, into the mind of the philosopher-emperor who believed that mercy was the highest form of strength. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. The year is 175 AD. The Roman Empire trembles under the weight of rebellion, plague, and war. And yet, in the quiet of his tent near the Danube frontier, the most powerful man in the world writes, not decrees, not battle orders, but reflections to himself. No audience. No applause. Only a man wrestling with the question, how do you wield absolute power without becoming its slave? Marcus Aurelius was not born into chaos. He inherited it. Rome's golden age had begun to tarnish. Corruption spread like rot in the Senate. Barbarian tribes tested the borders. The Antonine plague killed millions. An ordinary man would have become hardened, cynical, or cruel. But Marcus turned inward, to philosophy, to Stoicism, to the belief that virtue was the only true possession a man could keep when empires crumble. His meditations are not lofty essays for scholars. They are whispered prayers to himself. Lines written between wars. Lines like scars. He tells himself, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. He reminds himself, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. But can a man of mercy lead legions? Can an emperor preach virtue while sending men to die? Picture Marcus walking through the imperial palace at dawn. His steps echo against the marble floors. Servants bow. Generals wait with dispatches. But his mind drifts to a deeper battle, against pride, against wrath, against the intoxicating pull of power. He knows that one word from his lips can condemn a man or spare him. One gesture can make a senate tremble or rise. Yet he writes to himself, "Do not let your ruling of others enslave your own soul." Here lies the paradox. Mercy, to Marcus, was not weakness. It was discipline. The discipline to pause before anger ruled his hand. The discipline to forgive when revenge burned hottest. The discipline to see his enemies as ignorant rather than evil. And yet, history remembers the blood. Marcus crushed the rebellion of Avidius Cassius, his own general, when betrayal cut deep. He ordered executions, sanctioned brutal campaigns along the northern frontiers. Rome was held together not by philosophy alone, but by steel. This is the uncomfortable truth Marcus never denies. Virtue does not erase violence. It tempers it. It forces the hand that strikes to ask, "Why must I? And what will this make of me?" Carl Jung once wrote, "The world will ask you who you are. And if you do not know, the world will tell you." Marcus knew. But did his mercy always serve Rome? Some argue it did not. His clemency toward the Senate allowed corruption to fester. His reluctance to purge enemies decisively left seeds of unrest. His desire to rule as a philosopher more than a tyrant may have weakened Rome's grip when the empire needed iron. But look closer. Marcus Aurelius was not naive. He understood that mercy has limits. He understood that wolves wear smiles. Yet he chose to believe that a man could meet the cruelty of life with inner dignity and still survive. Not by surrendering to savagery. Not by imitating the tyrants he despised. But by embodying a paradox, the gentlest touch from the firmest hand. And now, the question passes to you. If you were emperor, standing at the crossroads of mercy and necessity, would you risk being seen as weak to remain good? Or would you soil your soul to preserve your throne, your people, your legacy? This is the weight Marcus carried, stone by stone, decision by decision, until his death in 180 AD. But his shadow lingers, whispering across centuries. A man's worth is measured not by what he conquers, but by what he refuses to become in conquering it. And yet, another shadow waits. A Florentine diplomat who believed Marcus was noble, but dangerously naive. He would argue that mercy, without cunning, was the quickest path to ruin. That appearances of virtue mattered more than virtue itself. That survival, not goodness, was the highest law of power. Do you agree? Or does Marcus still hold your conscience hostage? Share your thoughts. Should a ruler bleed for virtue or wear a mask of necessity? Now descends into the mind of Niccolo Machiavelli, the man who dared to say, "Be feared or be nothing." Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. Niccolo Machiavelli. The streets of Florence whisper with intrigue. Courtyards echo with betrayals sealed by handshakes. And in the shadows of palaces where daggers hide behind velvet curtains, a man studies power like a physician studies disease. Machiavelli. Not a king, not a conqueror, but a man who dissects the anatomy of authority, stripping it of sentiment, laying bare its brutal organs. He saw the world not as it ought to be, but as it is, merciless, calculating, driven by fear and self-interest. And he wrote his findings in The Prince, a manual not for saints, but for survivors. Where Marcus Aurelius sought to master the self, Machiavelli sought to master perception. Where Marcus asked, "How can I stay good while ruling?" Machiavelli asked, "What good is ruling if I do not survive?" Picture the Florence of his day, a city-state of shifting alliances, sudden coups, and families that poisoned rivals over supper. Mercy here was not virtue. It was a death sentence. Machiavelli had watched the fall of princes who mistook loyalty for love, who showed weakness when cruelty was expected. He saw that men praised virtue, but followed fear. And so, he wrote his infamous line, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But do not mistake him for a monster. He did not delight in cruelty. He warned against excessive violence, calling it dangerous, self-defeating. Yet he knew, appearances mattered more than reality. A ruler should appear merciful, honest, humane, but act with cunning when survival demanded it. Because, as he wrote, everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Imagine yourself on a throne once more. Your rivals plot in secret. Your allies weigh their loyalty against opportunity. Would you trust their love or their fear? Machiavelli forces you to confront a grim truth. Morality alone cannot hold a kingdom. Virtue without vigilance invites betrayal. Mercy without calculation opens the gates to ruin. But here lies the shadow in his philosophy. What happens to the soul of a man who learns to wear masks? Who smiles while suspecting betrayal? Who rewards loyalty but wields fear as his true foundation? Carl Jung warns, the possession of power is no blessing in itself, except when it is wielded by the selfless. Yet selflessness is precisely what Machiavelli feared, because selfless rulers do not survive long enough to rule. Still, he was no advocate of endless cruelty. He admired strength with subtlety, discipline with decisiveness. He even argued that a wise ruler should avoid hatred at all costs, not because hatred is wrong, but because it is dangerous. Hatred breeds conspiracies. Fear keeps conspiracies quiet. So, was he cynical, or simply realistic? Did he corrupt power, or expose its corruption? Think of it this way. Marcus Aurelius teaches you how to preserve your soul. Machiavelli teaches you how to preserve your life. Which is worth more? As you ponder this, a strange realization emerges. Both men speak to the same fear, the fear of losing control, of self, of empire, of destiny. One trusts virtue to hold it together. The other trusts cunning to bind it with invisible chains. And now, the floor is yours. Would you rather lead with a gentle hand, knowing daggers may find your back? Or a firm hand, knowing your legacy might be written in whispers of cruelty? Tell us, whose shadow would you stand in? Marcus or Machiavelli? But before you choose, consider this. What happens when these two philosophies collide, not in theory, but in the raw theater of history and the human mind? Let's step into the collision of ideologies, where gentleness and danger fight for the throne of the soul. He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. Friedrich Nietzsche. The marble corridors of Rome echo with Marcus Aurelius' calm reflections. The shadowed halls of Florence whisper with Machiavelli's sharp counsel. But between them lies a battleground, not of swords, but of philosophies. Gentleness versus cunning. Virtue versus survival. Mercy versus fear. Neither stands alone without risk. Both carry the seeds of ruin and the promise of strength. Imagine this confrontation as a timeless debate across the ages. Marcus stands cloaked in Stoic resolve, his words heavy with self-mastery. Machiavelli leans forward, eyes glinting with irony, as if to say, noble, yes, but nobles end up in graves. Marcus counters, what is power worth if you must betray your own nature to keep it? Machiavelli replies, what is virtue worth if you are dead before you can live it? This is not a clash of good versus evil. It is a clash of two truths, each incomplete without the other. Marcus teaches, to rule yourself first, or risk ruling others like a tyrant. That mercy is strength because it resists the poison of vengeance. That a leader's soul must remain uncorrupted, even in blood. But he risks paralysis. He risks being slow where swiftness saves. He risks mistaking kindness for justice, until justice collapses under betrayal. Machiavelli teaches, that appearances matter more than essence. That fear binds loyalty more tightly than affection. That survival sometimes demands masks, deceit, and swift cruelty. But he risks hollowing the soul. He risks creating a kingdom ruled by suspicion and dread. He risks turning survival into emptiness, a throne made of ice. And here, the paradox sharpens. A mercy without teeth breeds betrayal. A fear without virtue breeds revolt. So where do you stand? Would you temper justice with mercy like Marcus, or coat mercy with cunning like Machiavelli? Carl Jung once wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The darkness here is this: leadership demands both light and shadow. The ability to forgive, yet know when forgiveness invites ruin. The ability to command fear, yet know when fear corrodes loyalty. History, too, sides with neither fully. Empires led by idealists collapse under treachery. Empires led by tyrants crumble under hatred. But empires led by those who hold both, virtue and fangs, endure longest. Now shift the debate inward. This is not about thrones or crowns. It is about your life, your career, your relationships, your legacy. How often have you faced a choice where being kind meant being exploited? How often have you hardened yourself and felt a piece of your humanity slip away? You live on the same battlefield Marcus and Machiavelli fought on, not of empires, but of choices. Marcus whispers, "Stand firm in who you are. Let your principles guide you. Do not let fear steal your soul." Machiavelli leans closer, "And yet, guard yourself. Wear masks when truth is dangerous. Strike swiftly when hesitation invites ruin." So, who do you listen to? Do you walk with the philosopher who carried mercy like a shield? Or with the strategist who sharpened deception like a blade? Or do you dare to hold both, risking the burden of balance, the hardest path of all? This is the collision. Not a duel to the death, but a demand. Be gentle. Be dangerous. Be both, or be broken. And now, the question returns to you. Which philosophy would you carry into your life? Which voice would guide your decisions when the stakes cut deep? Tell us, Marcus or Machiavelli? Or both? But the debate is not over. Next, we descend deeper into the psychological battlefield, where gentleness becomes a trap and danger becomes a poison, and where your own mind is the prize. Man is not truly one, but truly two. Robert Louis Stevenson. The war between Marcus and Machiavelli is not fought in palaces or parliaments. It is fought inside you, where instinct collides with morality, where conscience and survival claw at each other for control. This is the battlefield of the mind. You wake each day to choices that echo these two voices. When to show compassion, when to strike, when to reveal your heart, when to wear a mask. Mercy feels noble until it costs you everything. Cunning feels safe until it hollows you from the inside. Marcus Aurelius warns you of one trap, becoming what you despise. Waste no more time, he writes, arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. But what happens when being good means being vulnerable? Machiavelli whispers the opposite trap, becoming so guarded that you forget who you are. He cautions rulers to appear virtuous, but not necessarily to be virtuous. Yet how long can you play the mask before the mask plays you? The human psyche bends beneath these pressures. Show too much mercy, and resentment festers. Show too much cunning, and paranoia blooms. One breeds exploitation. The other breeds isolation. Carl Jung spoke of this inner war when he said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." To grow strong, you must face the darker parts of yourself, your capacity for anger, for manipulation, for vengeance, not to unleash them recklessly, but to understand their pull and master their use. Picture two chambers within your mind. In one, Marcus sits, reminding you of restraint, to breathe before you speak, to forgive where forgiveness preserves your integrity, to hold fast to virtue, even when the world gnaws at it. In the other, Machiavelli leans forward. His voice is low, sharp, persuasive. He tells you to protect yourself, to use fear, not cruelty, but the awareness that boundaries enforced are boundaries respected. This duality is not weakness. It is necessity. Life will test you with people who mistake kindness for submission. Life will tempt you with victories won through deception, only to demand a piece of your soul in return. The battlefield is knowing when to yield and when to strike, when to speak with mercy and when to speak with authority so cold it chills the air. History is full of leaders who failed to master this. Some, like the last emperors of Rome, drowned in indecision, mistaking compassion for leadership until rebellion consumed them. Others, like ruthless tyrants, ruled with fear so pure it rotted their empires from within. Both extremes lead to ruin. Balance alone preserves legacy. And yet, the hardest truth is this: the line between gentleness and danger cannot be drawn once and left. It must be drawn again and again, in every decision, every moment of temptation, every test of character. You, too, are a ruler, not of Rome, not of Florence, but of your choices, of your boundaries, of the empire of your own life. Every time you choose mercy, you risk being taken for granted. Every time you choose ruthlessness, you risk becoming hollow. The question is not which side you choose once. The question is, can you stand in both shadows and not lose yourself? This is the psychological battlefield, not for kings alone, but for anyone who seeks to live with strength and conscience in a world that punishes both. And so, the debate sharpens. Marcus still whispers of virtue. Machiavelli still warns of betrayal. But the war is no longer theirs. It is yours. What about you? Have you been too merciful when you should have been firm? Or too calculating when compassion would have built bridges? Tell us your thoughts. Because the final step is not theory, it is legacy, where we explore how to live, not as a philosopher alone, not as a strategist alone, but as someone who dares to be gentle, dangerous, and unbreakable. A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. Carl Jung. The philosophies of Marcus Aurelius and Niccolo Machiavelli are not relics of dusty history. They are weapons. They are shields. And they are more relevant now than ever. Because the modern world? It is Rome and Florence combined, chaotic, deceptive, and merciless toward those who misjudge the game of life. Look at the landscape around you. Politics, business, relationships, social influence. The rules have not changed. Only the costumes. Marcus Aurelius teaches you to anchor yourself, to stand unshaken when storms rage. His lessons demand inner mastery. Do not let anger dictate your choices. Do not let greed define your worth. Do not let fear turn you into the very thing you hate. His philosophy is a compass in a world that spins like a storm. Without it, you drift, losing not only direction, but yourself. But Machiavelli stands beside him, whispering hard truths. He reminds you, a people value appearances as much as reality. A trust must be earned. Boundaries must be enforced. A kindness without strength invites predators. In business, it means negotiating with a calm smile, but knowing exactly when to walk away. In relationships, it means forgiving, yet recognizing patterns that demand firm consequences. In leadership, it means inspiring loyalty, while ensuring fear of betrayal keeps that loyalty sharp. So how do you walk this edge? How do you wield both gentleness and danger without falling into naivete or cruelty? 1. Practice Stoic mercy, but set iron boundaries. Marcus would tell you to act with virtue, but not to mistake virtue for submission. Kindness is powerful when paired with consequence. Mercy is meaningful when measured. 2. Master appearances without losing integrity. Machiavelli would warn you, people judge what they see, not what you intend. Project strength. Speak with calm authority, but never trade authenticity for manipulation. 3. Prepare for betrayal, but do not dwell in suspicion. Life will test you with broken promises, but constant paranoia will corrode your spirit. Balance trust with verification, openness with discernment. 4. Remember that power begins with the self. Marcus spoke of ruling the self before ruling others. Machiavelli spoke of ruling perceptions before ruling kingdoms. Both agree, your first empire is your own mind. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." To walk the edge, you must see your own shadows, your hunger for control, your fear of weakness, your temptation toward ruthlessness, and choose how to wield them. This balance is not abstract. It is lived in boardrooms, in family disputes, in friendships where loyalty is tested, in moments where your silence, or your voice, decides who you become. So, what about you? Where in your life do you need Marcus's mercy? Where do you need Machiavelli's cunning? And where do you need the courage to carry both? Share your thoughts below. Because the true legacy of these philosophies is not in ancient books. It is in how you live when no one is watching. But before we leave this battlefield, let Marcus and Machiavelli offer their final words, not as teachers, but as ghosts locked in a timeless debate over the fate of your soul. What we do now echoes in eternity. Marcus Aurelius. Fortune favors the bold. Niccolo Machiavelli. The night is quiet. Two shadows linger where time has no hold. One carved from marble, eyes heavy with mercy. The other cloaked in cunning, gaze sharp as a blade. Marcus Aurelius speaks first. His voice is calm, steady, but weighted with years of struggle. Power, he says, is nothing if it corrupts the soul that wields it. Let your actions be guided by virtue, for only then can your legacy outlive the decay of empires. Lead with compassion, for fear fades, but the memory of justice lingers. Machiavelli tilts his head, a faint smile breaking the silence. And yet, he replies, virtue without vigilance is a crown made of glass. Show mercy too freely and you invite wolves to dine at your table. The world is ruled not by ideals, but by perception. Appear strong. Appear just. Appear merciful. but never let appearances blind you to the game beneath them. Two truths, both uncomfortable, both necessary. Marcus steps closer, his tone soft but firm. But Niccolo, if we live only by masks, if fear becomes our compass, what remains of us? Do we not trade our humanity for survival? Machiavelli does not flinch. And if we cling to ideals while the world devours us? If we let compassion dull our blade? Do we not lose everything, including the chance to be virtuous at all? The debate sharpens into silence. Neither yields. Neither wins. And that is the point. Because the lesson is not to choose one. The lesson is to carry both, the calm hand of Marcus, the calculating mind of Machiavelli, and wield them with wisdom forged by experience. Carl Jung whispers across the ages, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To make the darkness conscious is to see the predator within and tame it, to feel the pull of cruelty and measure it, to sense the temptation of mercy and sharpen it with caution. You stand where emperors and strategists stood, not in marble halls, but in the arena of choice. Each decision writes your story. Each moment decides whether your legacy will whisper of strength, or shatter under the weight of naivety or fear. So, what about you? Whose words will echo louder in your life? Marcus, teaching mercy and restraint? Machiavelli, teaching cunning and control? Or will you walk the razor's edge and carry both? This is the challenge, the dare, the inheritance of two minds. Be gentle. Be dangerous. Be both, now. History has handed you its sharpest lesson. What you do with it will echo, maybe not in eternity, but in every step of your life from this moment forward. So I'll ask you, which ideology speaks to you more? Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of virtue? Machiavelli, the strategist of survival? Or both, in a way only you can balance? Drop your thoughts below. Share your battles, your lessons, your scars. Because legend legacy is where minds sharpen minds. If this journey has struck a chord, let it linger, then strike back, with a like, a share, and a subscription, so you never miss the voices of history calling you to power. And remember, somewhere between gentleness and danger, your legacy waits.